The next thing we're going to do is add some text to the body of our key tag. Later on we'll add graphics, other things, but for right now we're just going to add some text. When we add text, it's very important that you do not try to put the text on the tag right away. The problem is we've got a three-dimensional tag. Remember, it's thick, and if we draw on top of it in one dimension, well, it's gonna kind of sink like quicksand into the 3 dimensions, and we won't be able to get to it again, and it's annoying. So we've just got to start off the right way, and you're good to go. There's some rules about text. One thing about the text, if you put too much writing on it, although it'll look nice on the screen, it won't print. And the reason why it won't print is the printer can't print less than 1 millimeter of thickness, and that's like a hair for it. So you really want your text letters to be, 2-3 millimeters wide, which means you don't want to put a novel on your key tag. It's just not going to come out right. The other thing that you want to avoid is you want to avoid using fonts that have very fine serifs. Serifs are the little hooks on the ends of the letters. A font like Arial is going to be a much better choice than a font like Times New Roman that has a serif on each one. So what we're going to do first is we're going to move our key tag down out of the way a little bit so that we have an area up here to work in. I'd like to keep the key tag present though, so we keep things in perspective. We don't want to make huge writing because we only have 30 millimeters of height here. And actually it's less because we put a 3 millimeter edge around it, so it's 30 edge to edge minus 6. So we're really looking at 24 millimeters we can work with. I'm going to go up to the text tool on the menu, come out onto the screen, and it's going to say specify the text position, and just pick a place that's going to give you some room. It's going to automatically put the text there, and it's going to say text, which isn't that inspiring. My text isn't much more inspiring. I'm going to call this my keys. When I type, you can see on the screen what you're getting. The default height is 10 millimeters. If you want to have 2 rows, you're going to need to keep it at 10 or less. And again, you'll have to kind of play around with it to see what works. I'm going to leave mine at 10 millimeters for right now, but I'm going to change it to bold because that's going to look a little better. And when I go in and look at my fonts, Arial is the default. And if I go in and, for example, choose this ARD code, this will be an abject failure. It may look pretty on the screen, but it will not print, and it will be a bummer. Too many serifs and very fine letters. It's not going to work. If I choose something like AR Julian, there are serifs here, those little flicks at the tops and bottoms, but those are pretty heavy serifs, so that probably would work instead. So I'm going to go down. Whatever fonts you have available depend on the computer that you're working on. If I choose something like Blackadder, I'm going to be disappointed. We want a fat font that's going to be pretty plain. This one is a little more interesting. You may or may not have this available to you. And I'm going to choose it for right now and click on OK. My text is black. When I click on the text and wait a second, you're going to see that it's going to turn orange. Text is treated differently than a sketch. First thing we want to do is go to the pill and go to move text, and we're going to actually move it down and move it over to get a perspective on how it's going to fit. And I think it could probably be bigger and still fit on my tag and make me happy. So I'm going to hit the enter key, go back to the text, click, go to my pill, and choose edit text. Instead of being 10 millimeters high, I'm going to try 15. Click on OK, and I can now go back into my pill and to move text, and I'm actually going to move it over on top of the key tag so that I'm sure that it's going to fit and the hole's going to be in the way, and that's going to work for me. If I hit the enter key now, I have lost my text. It's lost in no man's land, because it's sunk in the quagmire. It's not gonna work the way you want it to. What we need to do is hit undo. I'm gonna go back to my top position also. I'm going to get back to the orange in the pill. I'm gonna go back to move text, and I'm gonna move it off again. If I move it on, check the size looks good, don't hit enter. Move it off again, hit enter, and now we can continue our work without losing what we did. Okay? Now we've got our text, we're happy with it, and it fits. You'll have to play around with yours to see how it fits. If you don't like the typeface you choose, again, at this point we can still go into edit text and change from Berlin Sands to baby cakes. That's going to print, but that's going to be a waste of filament. That's just ugly. I can go in, choose what I want, pick the one that makes you happy, click on OK. If you want to change it again, click, go to the pill, and edit text. Once we've got it done, we now want to extrude the text. We need the text to be thicker so that when we place it on the key tag, we'll actually be able to see it and it won't be buried. So I click on it and I go to my pill and I'm going to choose extrude text. Now, when I created this outer border, I made that 5 millimeters. When I did the inside, I made it 3 millimeters. For the level to come up the same as the outside edge, I need to be 5 millimeters. When I choose 5 millimeters and hit enter, you can now see that my text has depth to it. It's a solid instead of just the text sketch. And if I click on it, go to my move tool, I can now move down or up. Just as with our sketch, once we extrude it, it's created a solid that's actually separate from the original sketch. I'm going to continue with my move, and I'm going to move it across, and I'm going to move it up. I don't want to move it in the third dimension because my third dimension is the front to back, and I want it to stay in the same plane as my key tag so that the bottom of my tag and the bottom of my writing is the same. To check that, I'm going to go into my view mode and I'm going to go to either left or right. When I go to left or right, you can see that the top of the text and the bottom of the text is completely incorporated within my tag. I don't want the text sticking way up here. It's not going to do me any good to have text that stands 5 feet tall. It's going to be in the way. And if it comes out the bottom, when you go to print, the printer will have problems because it's going to print the bottom first and it's going to print the letters and then this. It's just going to be a mess. We don't want to do that. So from the left, we're going to go back to the top. And at this point, when I click back on my background, I have a key tag that I can print. When I print, it's going to be in 3 dimensions with my text letters raised to the same height as the outside edge. Now, I want to stop and save at this point because I may want to make some changes, but I don't want to lose what I've done. But I also don't want to lose my blank key tag so I can use it again and not have to recreate it each time. So this time I'm going to choose Save a Copy. And again, I'm just doing it to my computer, and that's not your computer, so that you want to make sure you set up an account for yourself if you can. And I'm going to call this tag with name and hit save. At this point, I can go ahead and print. Or I can even get fancier. If I want to get fancier, I can click on my letters. And I can go to my extrude, and now I can extrude my letters in reverse. When I clicked on the M, see how the green lines are around it? I've selected the M. I'm going to drag backwards to reverse extrude my letter. It's got to be more than -5. hit the enter key, and I'm gonna go back around the front, and now my is M in cutout and Y in solid. Now the cutouts work great as long as you don't have a letter like an E. There's no way to suspend this E in space, so I'm going to just do it on 2 letters. I've cut out this one, and now I'm going to cut out the K. And again, I'm clicking on the individual letter. I can go to the pill and do the press pull. That's actually not going to work. Go to my letter, and I'm not going to get my extrude there. So I'm going to go up to construct, extrude, and I can just type minus 5.5 because that'll go backwards as far as I need to go. Notice if you cut out too thick, it's just like using a cookie cutter that's too thick for this rolled out cookie dough. It's going to cut it out, but then it's going to just disappear into space. So now I have my keys with 2 of the letters punched out. Last thing I need to do before I'm ready to print, and I want to make sure that I'm really happy with it first, so I'm going to go back and save it one more time. This time I didn't need to give it a name because I already gave it the new name. So now I want to go ahead and tell it to bind these all together. If I go to print and the text is missing, I've skipped this last step. So last step I'm going to do, I can just drag and select everything, and I'm going to go into combine and merge my solid mesh and my inside mesh. My solid source mesh is this right here, and now I should have one block. The only problem with this is once you've done this, I now can't edit the text anymore. That's why I made that copy first. Hit the enter key, and we should be, click on the background, I don't want that last step. Whoops, that wasn't what we wanted. This is where you want to hit undo. Let's try that one more time. I'm going to go to merge, target, and this is my source, is my letters, and they now should be bound in there. That should have worked that time. Alrighty? Now, last thing that we want to do is prepare this for 3D printing. So I'm going to go to the menu, and I need to choose export as STL. This is going to be a special kind of file that will allow it to work with our Cura program, and that's what the printer uses to create slices or layers that you're going to need. If you see combine objects here, we failed at this previous step. I'm going to click on OK, and I need to name my STL file, and this is the name of the file that we're actually going to try to print. So I'm going to call this print my tag. Ms. Thompson will not be able to tell whose that is if she's printing it and you're not there, so give it a name that's meaningful, like your name, preferably first and last. I'm going to choose save. And the last step I'm going to do is actually start the Cura program. If I go to my start menu and go to Cura, Cura is a program that's going to create slices or layers from our file. I'm going to choose load model. I found my model, it's called print my tag, and I'm going to choose open, and I'm going to look at it on the screen. The letters appear correct. I'm going to rotate it so I can see what I've got here. I need it to be flat in real life, but this will get me what I want. My key tags all show up okay. The whole looks good there. I'm a little concerned about this S here. It doesn't look like that's probably as good as I wanted it to be. If I rotate it a little bit more, I may be able to see if it looks okay. I guess it's sticking through okay. We'll have to see when it prints. But if you do not see the text here, or it's way huge or looks ridiculous, do not print. It's going to look equally stupid when it prints. Alrighty? At this point, we're ready to print, and then we need to make sure that Ms. Thompson knows you're printing, and she'll help you get going on that. This is our first project, a key tag.